All right, so we are going to paint the yellow-green apple right here. So this apple does sit in front of the red and yellow apple, so we'll be painting that on top of it. So to start, we're going to want to create a base of yellow-green. Switch palettes here. So I'm going to get yellow and some green and mix that up. A little more yellow to make this lighter. So you'll definitely want a greater ratio of yellow than green in this mix. So this is going to serve as our base. So like with the other fruit, we want to curve our brush stroke. So we're going to curve it toward the stem again. So I need to make sure that this looks like it's in front of the red apple. So I may have to paint over part of that red apple that I painted. So reshaping my apple just a little bit where some of my background table covered part of it up. And just got to touch up a little bit of this. All right, so for the shadow, so since we're working with yellow-green, the complement to yellow-green would be red-violet. Or you can just work with violet, but I'm going to go ahead and mix up red-violet. So have a little bit of violet, a little bit of red. Then I'm going to add my base to that after I get this mixed. And I can even use this color for my pear too. So that could even be included here. Now the shadow underneath this apple is not very dark, so I really don't need too much of this color. So it is going to be quite a bit lighter. So since it's not super dark, I'm going to go ahead and just get another brush, get my base on my brush. And we're going to blend this in. And slowly build this upward a little. So I need to redirect my brush strokes to shape the bottom of the apple. All right, so I'm going to wipe the paint off my brush because it's got quite a bit of paint on this. So I'm just going to wipe that off. And we're going to get more of this base color. Set it right here, right here. We're going to blend that down. So right now I'm just barely pressing my brush to the paper. So that'll help kind of blend in this yellow green into the shadow color that I made. And I'm going to get a little more of this yellow green, kind of finish touching up the top of this. Now this is blending in nicely. So my next step is I'm going to take some white. And I'm going to take some of my base. We're going to mix that. Make a nice highlight. So like the other objects, we're going to make 2 rounds of highlights. So we're going to do this first one. And maybe get a little more of my base color back. And blend this into the highlight that I made. continue to blend this down. Need to redirect my brush strokes toward the middle. There we go. Kind of touching up the top of that apple. And then we do have some highlights like in this kind of lower area. Before I add those, I am going to work with the dark values in the middle though. So I'm just going to take some of this dark color, put that around the stem. And I'm going to get a little bit of my base on my brush. And we're going to blend this base back into that kind of shadow color I just put in the middle. So I'm going to cover part of that stem that I'd sketched out, which isn't a big deal. And I'm going to get some of this highlight color back, and I'm just going to create the highlights like right here. And we have a highlight. So I'm putting that really bright highlight in now. And these are a little bright, so I'm just going to get a little bit green and kind of help kind of blend these into the rest of it. So now I just barely have any paint on my brush, and what I'm doing, I'm just kind of feathering out that darker value where the stem disappears into the apple. Try and blend this highlight in just a little more. Try and get it just a touch brighter. All right, so for the stem, I can use this base color that I had made. I'm gonna grab a smaller brush though to make this a little bit easier. So just kind of going with this darker base and just gonna sketch the stem in with this darker value. And I'm gonna take a little bit of this lighter highlight that I'd made. Add some barely gonna touch the paint right here. And I'm gonna try and push the this area of the apple a little bit darker. So I'm gonna get a little more violet on my brush. So here's the violet. I'm just gonna take a little bit of that base or the shadow color that I mixed up. I need this to be really small. So I'm gonna spin my brush, get it fairly pointed. I'm gonna try and push this a little bit darker right there. So this helps emphasize the depth of the stem. I'm just kind of touching it up with that brush that I had a little bit of the highlight on. And I'm going to work with some of the highlights over here just a little bit. So right now I'm just reshaping my apple just a touch. There we are. So I'm going to emphasize some of the highlights on the side, just so the apple isn't nearly as flat. And then as you can see in the photo, there's little kind of tiny marks, like there's some textures in this area. So I'm just using my brush and kind of stippling some of these rough textures on. Just little imperfections help add to the kind of details and interest of the painting. And then they stand out quite a bit right now, but when the painting dries, they won't stand out nearly as much. And I'm just gonna kind of re-emphasize the shadow underneath, so that'll help give the apple a little bit more form. So this apple does take a little bit of work because it's at a weird angle. We're essentially staring straight at it. And then for the table shadow, we'll want to use a similar technique that we did for the lemon. So that was just a matter of orange, blue, and a little bit of violet to darken it. So we can go ahead and do that. I need to do the shadow for this apple also, so we'll do that. Get a fairly dark color, get some violet. So we're doing orange and blue because the table is fairly orange looking, and then the blue will counter it and kind of neutralize that bright orange. Now let's add this shadow. The shadow kind of creates this almost like crescent moon type shape. And then back here, this gets pretty dark. So a lot of the table and texture you can't really see underneath this apple and kind of on the side of the yellow green one. So we're going to get this a little darker. And so I have paint kind of running out on my brush. And so I'm just painting over partially over the shadow that I just laid down. But since there isn't a lot of paint on my brush, it's making that kind of feathered shadow appearance. And I accidentally got some paint on the apple I was just working on. Kind of annoying, but we can fix it. wood box back behind is darker too, so I'm just going to lightly go over that. My paint. There we go. And just for consistency, I'm going to touch up the lemon shadow a little. Just to darken it because it didn't really dry as dark as I was hoping. And we'll do the orange too. Just try and push that a little darker. Not the whole shadow, just really kind of what's underneath the orange. All right, so there is the yellow green apple.